Hello everyone, something a little bit different today. I am fully aware that Valentine's Day is just around the corner, so I've decided to play with a heart, and I want to try and see how many different ways I can digitize this heart in a reasonably long video. Not, I don't want to go on forever, but just one image can give you so many different options. I will be referring to previous videos I've done for you to watch during the video, and I'll put links to them down below because otherwise this video will become extremely long, so I'm going to gloss over some of the actions. So a lot of these things can be done in the creator level, but of course you have even more options in Designer Plus. So I'm starting in the creator level and I've loaded the image. I'm hoping that you can get this image in creator level as well. I'll show you where you get it, and if you can't find it, then try and find something similar to work with. But the theory I tell you in this video will apply to other images as well. So where the picture is in your libraries, pictures, Bonina 9 pictures, artwork, the WMF folder, and it's called Big Heart. So if we scroll down the B's, you will get to a Big Heart option. Now in the WMF folder they give you the WMF image and the PNG. These are all very clean images. The reason they've put the PNG ones in, even though they're raster files, so they're made up of pixels, is because you can't get a thumbnail of the WMF images, and so you can choose the WMF to get the cleanest possible image because they will still load in embroidery canvas. But the PNG ones work just as well, so if you click on the PNG by mistake, don't panic. I'm going to go for the WM. Oh well, I've already loaded, but I actually loaded the PNG file, so just to show that it works just as well. So I'll cancel out of that because I've already loaded it. But you can, as I said, load the WMF file if you so desire. It does convert it anyway to a raster file in embroidery canvas. Very clean image. We've got single colours, well defined. So we can play with the auto digitizing tools. Now you could just do the instant auto digitize. You need to select your image first for the auto digitize and the instant auto digitize to take effect. So you could just instant auto digitize this image. I'll just do that quickly, and you'll see that if I go to color blocks, you've got all the objects very cleanly done because it was a clean image, and it has not digitized the white background in instant auto digitize. So that's very useful. So you could in fact stitch this out now. The black outlines are being stitched before the yellow, which I don't particularly like, so I might just move the yellow up. So there are a few things you can do. You can now select any of those objects as well and change the type of fill. You can do all your editing on any of those objects, and if you want to know how to edit auto digitized designs, you can go to my frog videos, and I take an auto digitized frog and I improve on the design before I stitch it out. So in this case, a really quick fix for one of them is to move this yellow object up one color so that it stitches before the black outline. That looks more even in relation to the other black outline that was here, stitched after the red. So as I said, you can go with that if you so desire. If you're in a real hurry, that will stitch out reasonably well so long as you've got a really good stabilizer underneath. Okay, let's undo that and undo the auto digitizing. The next option, of course, is your auto digitize, not instant, but just ordinary auto digitize. This gives you a bit more control, and I've already, normally I'll have to actually close that and go one more undo so that the image isn't prepared. Okay, if I undo again and redo, yes, so I've now just got the image. It hasn't had any preparation done to it at all. So if I go to auto digitize, I will get up the prepare bitmap. And so in this case, you've got options to do things with the colors. If your image wasn't quite as clear as this one, you may need to increase the number of colors by sliding this slider, or decrease them if it's picked up too many colors. You can merge colors and so forth. And I've got videos on auto digitizing for beginners, so I'll list those below as well to explain how all this works. So if you're happy, once you're happy with this screen, you can go OK, and then you can choose, for instance, the white. I don't want that to stitch, so to get rid of that white background, I can omit that. And then I've got other options here as well, which I go through in those other videos. So I'll just go OK here, and gives you a very similar effect. This time I got a fill stitch for the yellow instead of a satin, so that's interesting. Again, this is fully editable. I'm doing these actions on the image at the size the image came in. So let's just look at that in relation to a hoop, for instance. And this is the 4x4 hoop, so it's too big to fit in a 4x4 hoop. So if you only have a 4x4 hoop, reduce the image size before you start digitizing. It's always best to have your image at the size you want to end up with. Okay, let's get rid of that hoop, and let's undo that for the moment. So undo and undo, so that the image is not, the bitmap's not prepared. Okay, then of course you've got your magic wand, which you have to prepare the bitmap again. Go OK, and now you can choose which bits. So if you only want that yellow heart part there digitized, you can just select the yellow part, and you will have a lovely yellow heart that's a little bit bolder. So let's hide the image. And you can improve on this as well by adding stitch angles in your edit. So add stitch angles, and you can, let's just go around so that the stitches radiate out. We want them going down through there. That's probably not, oh, backspace there. That's not the angle I wanted. I wanted it that way. And then straight down through here. And enter. And of course you can move these if you didn't get them quite right to start with. But that gives you a little bit more interesting stitching going around the heart. You can then add an outline to that. So let's go to the edit toolbox and outlines and offsets. So we'll go back to select outlines and offsets. If we just want an outline, we can choose, so let's choose a red satin outline for instance, and go OK. I'm sure I've covered outlines and offsets somewhere too, so I'll try and find that video and list it below, but I really just want to give you ideas. Now the satin outline doesn't look so good here at this size of object, so maybe I want to undo that and go with a single run or a triple run and go OK. So you can just play like this and come up with all sorts of options. Let's select the yellow, let's remove the stitch angles, and let's use a pattern fill. And I might change that to red as well so that it shows out nice and bright for you. That is the default pattern fill. It's a very thin area. If we go to object properties, we can select a smaller pattern perhaps, something like this, and go OK and apply that. That's a little bit more in scale with the size of this heart, but I probably, and I've still got my triple outline on here. Now if I wanted something a bit bigger in my pattern, then this width of this heart is not really big enough to accommodate the larger patterns, as you saw. So there is a way around this. So if I undo all of that, back to the image, redo, show the image, undo that one, and let's go. I've gone back before the prepare bitmap, so now when I go to auto digitize toolbox and go to the magic wand, I can prepare the bitmap again, and say I wanted a wider colour. The pink is a little bit wider. I could choose that one and that would give me a smaller heart, so you've got that option. But I could make these two, the pink and the yellow, merge together, and so that I will get a bigger area, still with a hole in the middle, to fill with different fill stitches. So let's grab the yellow and hold our control key down and click on the pink as well, the pale pink, and click on merge. So now all of that is one colour. It's actually blended the pink and the yellow to give us a kind of apricot colour. Now it will have a gap in there because of that black line, so I'm going to merge the black in as well. So I'm going to click on that apricot and hold my control key down and click on the black and merge that as well. Now I've got this one big apricot colour that will still have a hole in the middle if I don't digitize this inner part, and I can accommodate better pattern fills. So let's go OK with that, and now when we come with our magic wand, we can just select this colour and we can hide the image. We've got a wider area, so now when we go to select it, we can go to our pattern fill and you can see a lot more pattern there. So merging colours isn't just for if you've got too many colours come up. You can merge colours to achieve other things as well, so be prepared to play with the tools. So I'm still not liking, well, let's change the colour to that first, to red, so it shows up for you. I'm still not liking that particular pattern though, so I can now right click on there and go to the object properties, and I can select a pattern, and I'm just in the heirloom pattern set, but of course you have other pattern sets, and Designer Plus has even more than this. You can see odd ones here that you might not have because I've created some pattern sets myself, but we'll stick with the heirloom for now and just scroll down, and there is actually a heart in the heirloom, so you could choose a heart and go OK and apply that and see if you like that. And you may not like the angle of the hearts going straight across, so you can go to your layout and you can select the heart, the bottom left heart, and the handles will become hollow, and then you can rotate that heart and enter, and now your hearts are at an angle. So because it's a pattern fill, we've got a travel on edges, so sometimes it travels on the edge and then sometimes it doesn't need to, so you get these gaps. So this would be an ideal time to add some outlines to cover those. So I'll go OK and go out of that and grab my edit toolbox, outlines and offsets, and I will make that a satin this time because I've got a bigger area and it will take a satin. There it is, and go OK, and now I've got a satin outline around my heart. You could, if we open up the colour film, we can select our fill of, and we could change that to a fancy fill, so it could be solid and we could make that a different colour. So we could make that orange or gold, or here's a gold colour, that's better, and then we can choose the fancy fill we want in there. Now in Designer Plus, I'll show you shortly, you can actually do a sculptured fancy fill, but let's just change the actual fill type for the moment. So we'll right click on that, go to the object properties, and we've got all our fancy fills to choose from. So you could put somebody's letter in there. If you were doing this for someone in particular, you could put, let's do the letter R, and apply that. And so we're covered with lots of letters of R in our heart. Let's just choose something totally random. I have no idea what handline is. Oh, that's interesting. It's a really textured look. Might not be what you're looking for though. Diamond inlay, apply that. So there's all sorts of options there. I do have videos on the fancy fill and how to change the angle on that, because it's a bit more tricky than the pattern fill, and so I'll refer to those down below as well. So it's a good idea to make sure you watch all my videos in a nutshell, because then I can go on and just show you options of actually what to do with them without having to go over all the theory again. So this is the sculptured fancy fill that's available in Designer Plus. So as you can see, it turns to follow the stitching angles. So in order to achieve this, I'll just undo and undo and undo. So I bring back the image. I use the magic wand to digitize the merged colors, just as I did in the creator level. I'll just hide the image again out of the way. And then I had to put in some stitch angles to use the sculptured fancy fill. So I select the object, put in my stitch angles, just like we did before. And again, all this is in my fancy fill videos. Okay, so I'll enter that. Now my stitching radiates around and the shape of the object. So now I can come down here to the sculptured fancy fill and apply that. And of course, if I go to the object properties, I could change the actual pattern. This one's the glitter. And you can see that it curves around following the shape rather than just be a regular grid, but still creates really nice clear defined little diamonds and things because it's following the angles of the stitches. Okay, you could decide to, let me just undo back to where I've got a pattern fill, and let's decide to put some fabric underneath here. So in other words, turn it into an applique. Now in creator level, if you go to the applique toolbox, you haven't got an advanced applique, so you have got a choice here. You could make the whole heart have fabric in it and just this area have the hearts here, and you can do this in Designer Plus 2 with this tool. So you can just select the outer heart. If I go out of True View, you can see that's the one I've selected, and you can just convert that to applique. And what it does is it actually puts a wider satin stitch around the outside, but it puts fabric in the whole lot. It's not showing any fabric now, even though I've got show applique fabric, because I didn't set up a fabric in my, I'll just go back to True View, in my object properties. So if I want to actually see the fabric there, I'll have to left click on that, go to object properties and go to the applique if it doesn't open. And in the applique, we can choose an applique fabric. So you can choose from all the fabrics and you can expand these out and pick a fabric, or you could just choose a color and you can choose light color, mid color, dark color, or none. none will give you the blank none, which we've already got. Let's choose a gold to go under there. So now I've got gold fabric and go OK and apply that. Now as you can see, the fabric has gone over the top of my fill, and I don't want that. But unfortunately with applique, that's what happens. Your applique has to stitch last for your cover stitches, and so or in this case that inner heart is stitching last. If I expand out, we get all the applique stitches here, the placement line, the tack down line, and then the cover stitches. So to get this fill stitch on top of the fabric, we can't move the fill stitch to go anywhere down here. It just will not let us, because appliques are kind of grouped together. So what you need to do is select the applique and go to the edit toolbox and break it apart. Now these are just individual objects, and I can select that fill stitch and move it down to just before the cover stitch. Move it down one more. It's easier to use these arrows. And this blank one here is the fabric actually, so we need to go down below that. And it's still not showing. That's interesting, because I bet in Designer Plus it will show. Let's just hide the fabric. It's definitely there. Oh, that's interesting, because it should show up if it's stitching after the applique fabric piece. Let's just go to individual objects again. Let's remove these blank ones, which are the fabric. That didn't help. But believe me, when you stitch this out, that will stitch on top of the fabric, because you're going to put the placement line down, then you're going to put the fabric down, then you're going to tack it down, then you're going to stitch your fill stitch, then you're going to stitch your cover stitches. So break your applique apart to achieve that. But if you want to check that you've still got that object, just you can show and hide the fabric up here. Of course, we could have just made the small heart the applique, in which case it would have filled in the center. So I'll quickly do that. So that's this one, and we're going to go to the applique toolbox and convert it to applique, and let's show our fabric. I might have to, because I've been playing around with software, I've lost my fabric off there already. So let's select that and go to the object properties and set our fabric. Colours, mid, and a gold colour, that'll do. Okay. So that's another option. In that case, I would probably want to match this outer satin to the inner satin, because it looks a bit lightweight compared to that. So you can select that. First of all, find out what the satin width is for that one. So if I go to object properties, we can see that it is 2.6. Tack down, and cover stitch is 3, so we need to make this satin a 3 as well. So I'll close that, select this one, go to its object properties and change that to 3 and go OK. That looks better. So that's another option. What if you only wanted the fabric under this part and you still wanted this completely cleaner fabric? It's not so easy in the creator level. You actually have to manually digitize around the shape of the heart. So let's undo back to this part where we had just the embroidery, no applique. And in this case we would use digitize applique with holes, and you would I find it easier when you want to follow an actual line is to hide the stitches but to show the outlines, and then you've got an actual thin line you can really follow well. So we want to digitize an applique with holes, so we select that. We should be able to digitize once we've selected that. Digitize, enter point 1 on boundary 1. Now I've got it. Okay, obviously wasn't getting the tool and I've missed a little bit. Let's backspace. So I'm going to do this really roughly. So I won't need those red satin lines, the original ones, when I've done this, because it will create its own applique cover stitch. But I'll leave them there for the moment to follow them. And you would do this much more accurately, of course. And I'm going to do my last click on here. No, I'm going to just hit enter. It should close that for me. Yes. Now it's saying enter point 1 on boundary 2. So I'm going to continue. Where I'm getting this is right down the bottom left of the screen. You get prompts when you're using tools. So if you're not quite sure what to do, look down the very bottom left of your screen and see if there are any instructions before you start panicking and having to consult the manual, etc. Enter. And I could make another hole. So it's asking me to enter point 1 on boundary 3, but because I don't want to, I just hit enter again. And you can see down here at the bottom of the screen, I've got my 2 satin outlines. So I can select this one and delete it. And in fact, I'll hold my shift key down and select that one and delete it. And you're not seeing anything here because I am not showing the stitches. So I'll bring back the show stitches, and as you can see, I have got the wider satin outlines that are normally used with an applique. And let's put the fabric in, and you'll see it will cover those hearts again, I'm sure. So I'll select that applique. If I go to, you can see all the lines for the applique there. Again, I need it down, the stitching down here, but before I do that I need to add the fabric, otherwise it'll not have any colour fabric in there. So let's, you don't have to have that before you stitch. You could just break this apart and move that stitching down, but just so you can see, let's right click on here and go to object properties, add an applique fabric, colour, mid, go with the gold. Okay, and so as you can see, that's just got the fabric in that section. And again, as I said, break it apart, move your fill stitch down to below the satin stitch, because we want to use that as a border on the outer edges, but after the applique objects. Alright, let me just quickly show you how much easier it is in Designer Plus, because you've got the advanced applique tool. Now with this design, if you're going to use the advanced applique tool, you really need to make sure your outlines are the right width before you start, because it doesn't change the width of the outlines. So these are not as wide as one would like. If I go to my individual objects, this one's only 1.5, so I'm going to change it to 3 and apply that. And then I can actually select this other one and change that one and apply that and go OK. So 3mm would be the minimum I would use for an applique, so that you get a good coverage of the edge of the fabric. Okay, so now we've got our satin stitch the right width. That didn't take long at all. We can now select both those satin pieces. We don't need to select this at this point in time because it's not affecting the applique in any way. So those two, go to our applique toolbox and click on the advanced applique, and you can see that it's got mesh over the whole lot, so we can now place fabric or colour in the design. Let's get our gold colour and come across, and you can see I can just place the fabric in there, and that's all there is to it. Back and close, and there we have our applique for that area only, which we can then break apart, and the break apart tool is in the applique toolbox as well as in the edit toolbox, so we don't even have to go out of that toolbox. We can now move this object down until we get to above the cover stitch, just above the cover stitch. Just go one more, there we go. And in the advanced applique it does show on top, so there's obviously a few little tweaks they need to do to the software in the next update. It seems to be working sometimes and others not. But there you go, that's how that's going to stitch now. If we go to individual objects, your placement line and tack down line may well get broken into pieces, but don't worry, it'll stitch as one continuous object. This is actually grouped together still after you break it apart, so I'm going to ungroup, and when I ungroup I can then select this one here, which is actually the fabric, so I can delete that and the fabric disappears. So I'll undo that. We'll put the fabric back. So that is the fabric going down after the placement line, before the tack down line. That's new too in version 9. Alright, we didn't usually get, we only ever got a blank square. Okay. So much easier in Designer Plus to achieve that look. And I can't believe how the time has flown. Of course, you've also got options of, let's undo this back to of course you've got options of just doing outlines, and you don't have to have satin outlines, you could do different outlines. So I could change that outline to a blanket stitch, and it's facing the wrong way, so I would go to the object properties and inverse it and apply, and I need to offset it as well because it doesn't look very nice jutted out there, but blanket stitch is not really a good choice around this design, so I'm going to actually choose something else. Now Designer Plus has got all sorts of options for outlines, but you haven't got so many. I think you've got a pattern run. Again, it's a lacy design, so if you're in creator level I'd probably stick to the stem stitch or the back stitch or the triple run as my outline if I didn't want satin. So but of course in Designer Plus you can do all sorts. You've even got raised satin, which will give you a corded look because it stitches over the satin a number of times depending on what you set in your, so layers 3 I've got by default. You can actually have 2 layers, 1 layer, and the layers are on top of the original, so or below the original really. So if you're saying 5 layers, you've actually got 6 layers of stitching. It does use a lot of thread, but it's a very effective outline. There are also some other fill stitches in Designer Plus that you can take advantage of. So I'm going to remove the outlines and delete and delete, and actually bring back the image, and I'm actually going to delete that one too. You can use the contour fill, but you must manually digitize this. So you use, this is in Designer Plus only, so you would use the contour fill, which is this one. You need to block digitize to use the contour fill. So now we've got the block digitizing. We're going to left click, because this is a V, a point, and left click on this side, and then we're going to right click and try and put in your angles as you go. And I'm right clicking so that I get a curve. And again, I'm not going to fuss too much with this because of the time constraints. Now I'm going to left click because it's a point and I'm changing direction. I don't know how that's going to look later. I think I've done too many angles. It doesn't close off the object obviously, so I'm going to have to move those nodes so that they match up here. So let's go to the reshape tool. They are square nodes, so that's good, and I can just drag that top node down to that, on top of that square node. I should have digitized back to on top of my original nodes. That's better. Okay, so let's hide the image, go to 1 to 1 and hide the image, and go to true view. So you can get an effect like this, which is quite lovely actually. Let's select that and change it to red because that looks better for a heart. You can add your lettering, so I can open this one. I did actually do the contour fill, and I used the, so if I go to the lettering, and you could do this on any of the ones you've created in the creator level as well, any that you've digitized in the creator level with a different fill, but I've just put it on this one. So in the lettering I used the any shape, and I digitized the shape of the where I wanted the lettering to follow, and of course I've rotated the whole heart. If you do a smaller heart, you're going to have to change the object properties of the stitch spacing. So at the moment there it's 2.5. If I change that to 3, so that is increase the spacing, I'll get more of a gap between. You might like that look better, but as you go smaller, if your spacing is too wide, you won't get enough lines going through. So just play around with that stitch spacing to suit the size that you do. What else? You could use the couching tool, and you could digitize a couching line for around the outside. So let's digitize. I'll just go back to the original design actually and click off. So I could couch a piece of decorative thread that is a suitable weight for couching. And so I could digitize a closed object, and I'm using run stitch, but I'm going to apply the couching so I can see where I'm going, and I'm going to couch around here. Again, I could hide the stitches and just get the outline of that shape to be more accurate, but if you've got a thicker thread you don't have to be super accurate anyway, but you want to be reasonable. And enter, and there is my couching line. As I said, you could use any of these other fills. You could use the lacework fill, you could use a candlewick fill, you could use a blackwork fill. I probably wouldn't use a candlewick fill, but you could make candlewick outline. So if we undo that, we could go to our outlines and offsets in the edit toolbox, So select it first, outlines and offsets, candle wicking border. Okay, there we go. You would want to change the spacing, that looks a bit odd, and I have a video on candle wicking. The Paisley candle wick video explains all about getting the size of the candle wick correct and spacing it and reshaping it, etc. So we'll undo that. You could just pattern stamp some candle wicks on there. So you can come to the digitize and pattern stamp and choose the candle wicking. If I can find it. There it is. And I might choose the large one because it's a fairly large design and go OK. And I might put a candle wick here. And then I might put another one here. And then I might actually go to the next size down. So I need to escape out of that and pattern stamp again and choose the candle wicking again and choose the, let's go a little bit smaller, 3.5. Well, that's a half knot. Let's go to 3mm and go OK. And I could put a smaller one. And let's zoom in. It doesn't really look all that pretty. Oh, because I've got, let's undo that. Oh, let's escape out of there. I've got this applied. So let's just, I still had my couching tool. That's why it's all foggy. There's the stitches under there. So let's select all of those and take off that. That's better. That looks better. So that could be done. There are so many options. So what would you do with this heart image? If I bring back the image, let me know in the comments below. If I keep going, we'll be here for another century. So pop down in the comments what you would like to do with the image, and if you don't know how to achieve what you'd like to do, let me know and maybe I can show you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please read all the description below and check out all my links, and particularly the ones of the relevant YouTube videos, so that you can get the most out of this video. Thank you very much.